To the cloud. And we are
Those are my favorite ones.
All right, so this is the first episode of the 262 Talks podcast. We are a podcast that's going to be focused on political conversations from people of all sorts of different backgrounds. We're trying to have good, honest conversations without, any kind of animosity or anything like that, which is kind of a problem right now. We're all just a bunch of people who, I don't know, commented on my Facebook post one day and how so we're gonna get started. The first thing we're gonna do today is we are going to do introductions so everybody can kind of get a chance to, I don't know, like say who they are, a little bit about themselves, so you guys can get to know us better before we start talking about some of the topics that we have set up for today. I will go first since I'm already using my big old mouth. My name is my name is Daniel. I work in a warehouse factory type place. Don't want to dox myself too much. I am a pretty hardline leftist. I think probably the most leftist out of this group, which, okay. I got into politics about 4 years ago, like many people in this group, I'm assuming, might have gotten around that time too. During the 2016 election, went door-to-door knocking for a certain candidate that didn't end up winning. And then ever since then, it's been kind of like, a ball rolling kind of situation. The past 2 years been very involved with like protesting and demonstrating and like online activism. So that's me. I'm going to pass it down to Hannah. Hannah, why don't you say?
Hi, my name is Hannah. I currently go to Stevens Point in Wisconsin. I'm not really sure about politics too much right now. I'm really working on it and I'm really researching. So I'm a part of the leftist, I think. I'm like Democratic. I do stuff for like my Democratic Party here at Stevens Point. I'm still really getting into it since I know this election is very serious and since I know what happened in Kenosha. So I've just been trying to, get into more serious things now that I am like knowledgeable and kind of. I work for a diversity program here at Stevens Point, and yeah.
All right, I'm gonna pass it to Hope next.
Hi, I'm Hope. I go to a local college in the area and I work retail part-time. I kind of started getting an interest in politics in the 2008 election, if you can believe that. I was kind of young, but I don't know. I thought that election was pretty neat and my parents were kind of over the moon about it, and it was kind of a big thing in my house. And that was the first time I watched the polls come in by the end of the night, and I was like, what are we doing? What is it going to be? What's going to happen? So that was awesome. But I didn't really start getting hardcore interested and looking into things and all that until probably 2016 when it became really serious. Yeah, so Daniel's my best friend, so I learn a lot from him. I don't really know where I identify, somewhere in the left. Voting wise, more blue, I guess, but I don't know. Still figuring it all out.
Word. All right, Kyle, it's your turn.
I'm Kyle Flood, he, him pronouns. I am feeling kind of weird right now because I think I might be the biggest political insider in this group.
Yeah, you definitely are.
Yeah, for sure.
Usually I would be the biggest outsider in the group, and so it's kind of weird for me. But I was born and raised in Kenosha. I'm a former Kenosha school board member. I was the youngest ever elected when I was 18. I am currently the chairman of the political committee for Kenosha Accountability Coalition. In my professional life, I'm an organizer. Yeah, so that's me. As far as where I stand politically, I've been called a centrist by Daniel. I've been called a socialist by the Kenosha Republican Party.
Yeah.
I've been called a libertarian. So I guess you can't really identify a label for me, but maybe you guys will figure it out as we go along.
For sure. All right, so the next person I got on the list is Nick. You're up.
All right, what's up, guys? My name's Nick. I definitely started getting into politics from the 2016 elections. I think a lot of us, that was our first chance to vote in those elections. I know it was for me. I honestly 100% will admit to being very far left with Daniel. I don't know if I'd go quite so far, but but that is definitely where my loyalties lie. I'm definitely more blue than red, 100%. I do have a minor hatred for the Republican Party. I went to school at Parkside here in Kenosha for politics for about a year and a half. I had to stop that, put a little hold on that for my son, who's 2 now. But I've pretty much lived in Kenosha my entire life. I technically live in Pleasant Prairie now, but still identify as a hardcore Kenoshan. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, Brian, you're up.
Hello, Brian Little. He, him pronouns. Lived in Kenosha majority of my life, originally from New York City. I got into politics around, I want to say 2004. So I should tell you a little bit about how old I am. And for me, this is probably the biggest election that's been out ever since election's inception. And from what I've seen, it's probably a little bit different than a lot of you guys. I used to be a big-time Democrat, and now I don't know what I am, because the values on both sides don't align with me. But I will tell you, I currently do work for an organization that is looking to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and
Bravo.
they are backing Biden. So it's kind of that saying, you know, this is one of those elections where it's the lesser of the two evils. As much as I hate to use that phrase, that's kind of what it is right now.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like right is right and wrong is wrong, and we can clearly see who's doing what and whose values and morals are aligning with certain people. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Sure. All right, and last but certainly not least, Isaac, you're up.
My name is Isaac Wellner. I am the founder of an organization called the Human First Project, and that's important because it's a humanity project. So when it comes to my politics, I vote on the side of humanity. Can that waver? Sure, but do I lean more left? Absolutely. But at this current time, when it comes to politics in general, I'm just kind of fed up with the two-party system, to be completely honest. There needs to be somebody who runs and who sticks true to their guns and who they are. Because right now, on both parties, people sell out to the party and they lose track of who they are, so they're not real and true. And I have a problem with that. If you're not real and true to you, then they don't. Like people say, it's voting for the lesser of two evils, and that's really what it is right now. Because a lot of independents can be true to who they are without having to answer to a party's call. Whether or not they're going to lean on the side of humanity, that's up to them. But the independent party would be represented in such things as presidential debates and things like that, so they have a real opportunity to win an election. And for work, I drive dump trucks when my ankle is not broken, or CDL work, sales work. I do a lot of kind of things. Comes and goes with the seasons and wherever money lies. So,
For sure.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, cool. Before we jump into our first of our main topics for this podcast, we are called the 262 podcast because I'm pretty sure everybody could. There's a cat on. The common thread for all of us is we're all from Kenosha, Wisconsin, which for a lot of people, you know, who might tune into this or probably know that we're all from Kenosha. But anyway.
Which meant nothing until a couple weeks ago. Or
Yeah,
it was
it was the middle of Kanoa, the armpit of the Midwest, and
Mhm.
now we're online having to be like, no, I really am from Kenosha, I promise. Like, promise, like, go to Trolley Dogs if you want to shit your pants, like, you know.
Oh no.
But all right, so if that's it for introductions, we are going to move into our first topic, which is going to be the pre-Jacob Blake shooting protesting. So more specifically, the post-George Floyd protesting scene and like the majority of the summer leading up to the Jacob Blake shooting, because obviously a lot of things changed after that situation happened. You know, so we want to discuss what happened before and then, you know, post with clearly all the things that happened in the news. So if I'm going to pass to start us off, since I started the last one, I'm going to, I'll just pass it to Hannah. You can start with what your perspective on pre-Jacob Blake protesting was in town.
Okay, so I started after George Floyd. I started doing like little protests within the city. Like, I know I went to one that Daniel was at, and that's really when I started like, oh, so like one of my friends is doing this too. Like, I'm not going to be alone. So it started like growing, and like, I think I was at one where Isaac was at and where Brian was at. It was one that it got to be pretty big, and we marched across like, can I name like streets and stuff? Because I don't really know.
Of course.
Yeah,
like
Kenosha's a big town, yeah.
Everybody knows now.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll say this. We were by Target in this big plaza, and then we marched there, and then we marched back, and it was really nice. There wasn't too many people who were saying anything like negative. Of course, you're going to have those couple people who say stuff, but that one was really good. And then I think that was the last one I went to before the shooting of Jacob Blake. So it was pretty peaceful before the incident occurred in our town.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Brian, you wanna go over?
Yeah. So this summer I went to the my first protest was the Kneel for 9, and I think that kind of sparked something inside of me that made me want to do more. So a friend of mine reached out to me and told me that there was another event going on, and that event happened to be the Back the Badge, and that's where I met Kyle Flood and another person that's part of our organization, the KAC, and they convinced me to do an interview with Fox. Was it Fox News?
I think so.
Because I'll say this, and I don't care if this goes on the internet, I'll stand behind it 110%. I absolutely hate David Clark. Like
That's not a hot take.
The word hate. That's what I feel for David Clark. That's how I feel about him. Like, I hate that man.
I feel like we're all in agreement on that one.
Yeah. So we're in complete and total opposition, and I think that kind of showed me a lot about what's going on here in Kenosha, where there's been a big problem going on for years, and it's been unaddressed. Now, the one thing I will say, though, from growing up here in Kenosha, going to high school at Trimper, to moving to Racine and then coming back this summer, what I did see, which I was really, really hopeful about, is people like Hannah and Hope. Kyle, I don't know you too well, Nick. I don't think I've seen you out.
I don't think so.
And Dan, like you guys, what I saw before Jacob Blake, right? What I saw was white people that were upset and frustrated just as much as black people were, and that really gave me a lot of hope, because growing up as a black man, you feel sometimes that you're alone in this battle. but then you see people that don't look like you, but they're your allies and they got your back 110%. I can tell you right now, I was at the courthouse. I was standing on the steps, and as I was standing on the steps, I was looking out, and I saw like literally a line of white people, and I felt so safe against hundreds and hundreds of white people that were like, you know, as I'm walking over to meet up with other people there, they're just like, fuck you, excuse my language, get off welfare, you know, yelling these like contentious things. But then I get up to the steps, and it was like this safe bubble where it was like people that didn't look like me had my back and were just as frustrated as I was. So that's what I saw before the Jacob Blake situation, was a lot of underlying unity that doesn't get to doesn't get the publicized, you know, publication that the hate that they try to fuel Kenosha as being. So that was my take on the pre-Jacob Blake situation.
For sure. Hope you wanna, you know, take over now.
Sure. So pre-Jacob Blake, going like all the way back to George Floyd, when that all happened and was all over the news, I remember the first time I heard it exactly on the news, and I was downstairs in my kitchen, and just the TV was on, and the protests were already happening, like people were already rising up and coming together and saying like, this is wrong, you need to stop doing this. And for how horrible of an event it was, seeing everyone finally stand up and say like, this is enough, we've seen this enough. In my head, I just like, I'm trying to word this properly. I had this relief, and it was kind of like, finally, like we're finally gonna do something about this. This is the last straw, you know? And so after that, it was, Kneel for 9 was also the first one I went to over the summer, and that was just like such an incredible experience. I think it was so powerful, and I've never been to anything like that before, and I just wanted to keep doing more. Like if that little thing, me being present there and just showing up, like that does a lot for numbers and showing people that like, hey, this is important, people care about it. And so whenever I could go out and do more, that's what I wanted to do. Normally Daniel's my protest buddy, but so we would go out whenever possible, and obviously he goes out a lot more than me. And yeah, that was powerful. And the marches, the one big march that happened towards the end of the summer was just, they're just so incredible to go to and see everyone come together for the same thing.
It is satisfying for sure.
It gives you a little bit of hope, you know, that in such a shit world we live in right now, when people can be so selfish and only think of themselves, that like there's this many people who can come together and say, no, we care about each other.
Hey, Hope, what march was that?
I don't remember what they titled it. I think it was post Jacob Blake, but
It was the Blake family one that they had all the speakers at.
With the rally at Civic Park, and it was yeah, it was like giant.
Yeah.
It was so massive. Never seen that many people. Yeah.
All right. Isaac, you wanna say your piece?
Yeah, of course. So pre-Jacob, but I'm going to take you guys a little bit farther back to kind of paint the story about what I'm going to talk about. Is I'm adopted. So I'm adopted by my parents are white, and I live in just a melting pot of a family. I have 6 siblings, and we're all adopted from separate families. So none of us are blood related. Now, I grew up with my father loves Bruce Springsteen. I grew up I went to 4 of his concerts growing up. And he has a song called 41 Shots, which is about a shooting of an unarmed black man. And I listened to that song over and over again. It was just a song for the longest time. It was just a song that played. I heard the lyrics, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Then one day, I got older, I was like, Dad, what is this song really about? And that's when he had to have this talk with his African-American son to put in perspective what that song really means. And then the lyrics in the song is, you can get killed just for living in your American skin. So that really resonated for a long time. And then with my generation, then you saw a movie, I don't know if people watched the movie Fruitvale Station by Oscar Grant, who got shot by bar police at the subway on New Year's Eve. He was unarmed, he got shot. So these kind of things were kind of like a song or a movie there were real people behind it, but there wasn't a realness in our lives. And so you get a little older, and then you see things such as Trayvon Martin, and he gets killed. And now it starts to become a hashtag on Facebook. The media picks it up, it becomes real. Marches start happening. Then George Floyd happens, among other people in between that time. And it started to be a national, a worldwide movement. So now cities start to stand up and rise up with these other cities, and Kenosha picked up on it. Now, I didn't go to any events due to work. And then I decided one day that I was just frustrated I couldn't attend the protest. So I made my own and hopped on Facebook and threw up a protest. I figured it'd be like, I don't know, 5-10 people, family, friends, but it just kept growing and growing on Facebook. People start RSVPing. It's like, oh shit, I got organized like now. It's just have, I can't go there with no plan, because 200 people, 400 people started RSVPing. I was like, well, that's a lot of people. I need speakers now. I need a plan. Overnight, I became an organizer and grabbed people and got speakers, whether it was clergy, other people, myself, and had my event. And then it became something that I was like, well, I'm doing something, and I have a voice. I like to use it a lot, and I want to use it for a constructive reason and unify people, bring them together. And then that birthed my organization as well. So be able to go out there and see people from all different races coming together to stand up for one another is powerful, which is why my organization came to be. I had the idea 5 years ago to start the organization, but I launched it after my first protest. It was just a launching platform. But also on the other side of the things, you start to see where KPD would sympathize with the law and order message that Trump was putting out across America, such as on their Facebook, there was not a post about we feel for our African-American brothers and sisters, we support the community, we stand up with you, was pictures of the National Guard, and thank you for supporting us. And it was all about the power they were showing, not about, having some, being out there and supporting the cause of why the National Guard was in Kenosha. They never want to talk about the cause, they want to talk about the reaction. And I sat down with the chief and talked about that with him, pre-Jacob Blake, telling him, hey, we have all the ingredients in Kenosha to be the next hashtag on Facebook. If you guys don't fix this, if you guys don't bridge the gap and show some support, we're going to be the next Ferguson, the next Minneapolis. And I'm like, all you need is one officer to have more fuel to that fire and light that match. And sure enough,
that's what happened.
That's what happened. So be able to see that and have that be so real, and come to Kenosha and be more visceral than it was just seeing it on social media and other feeds on Facebook Lives and just movies or songs. It really hit home. But like I said, the biggest thing I pulled from that though is black, white, whatever race came together to stand up and show support and lock arms together and fight the good fight. So that's important.
Nick, you wanna go up next?
Yeah, sure. So pre-Jacob Blake, I mean, I'll go as far back as May when the whole George Floyd incident happened. It wasn't anywhere near as, I don't know, close to home as it was for Jacob Blake. So, I mean, I was there I just went to one gathering after George Floyd. It wasn't the Kneel for 9. It was just a small, I can't remember exactly what it was, just a little vigil, just to remember him, and to kind of speak out a little bit. But for the most part, there was not many, like, crazy protests going on through Kenosha. I know a few businesses suffered some damages. I know there was a tattoo parlor on Roosevelt or something that had like their windows smashed in or something, but that was also only because the owners were outside yelling at the protesters.
I think it was Black Pearl.
What's
It
up?
was also,
I think it was Black Pearl.
that was also like minutes after someone had drawn a gun on protesters.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
right.
see?
Immediately after that.
And that kind of put more wood into the fire, like, because I know there was like a couple homeowners that were outside in their front lawns with guns and stuff too, like along the protest routes. And I know my favorite sushi place ever, Soon's. I don't know if you guys ever had the chance to go there. They had a Molotov cocktail thrown in after they had already suffered a kitchen fire earlier, and were still
They
in
just
repairs.
fixed it.
Yeah, they were just getting everything set to go, and then had that Molotov cocktail thrown in. So sadly, they're still delayed right now. But I mean, other than that, it wasn't too crazy in Kenosha. There was some people, but it definitely kind of thrust everything about like all the racial inequality, I should say, right into the limelight for us, just with the protests going on. But yeah, I mean, I think that, and then like Breonna Taylor, that all just kind of got everything going. And then, when Jacob Blake happened, it was just, too much over the top, and it all popped off. But yeah.
All right, Kyle, you wanna
Sure.
get in here?
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I repeat anybody, but there are, I'd say, about 3 moments that really stick out to me. And like a lot of people ask me how I went from like this advocate in the boardroom to an activist out on the streets. And the big thing that the biggest thing I remember, and people will talk a lot about everything that happened post Jacob Blake. But the most historical day I remember for Kenosha, and I think I'll always view it that way, was May 31st. So we were just under a day after a week from the killing of George Floyd, and there was no organized protest until the day after that, the Kneel for 9, and hundreds of people just took to the streets. Not organized, people just started posting it on Facebook,
Right.
and hundreds were marching.
Mhm.
We shut down the biggest intersection in town at Roosevelt and 75th, and over there, you guys know where I'm talking about, 39th.
Yeah.
And we shut that down. We marched all throughout the city. I remember I had the path written down somewhere that we took, and it was just amazing. People of all races, people of different political leanings. Like I saw Republicans out there with us that day.
Yeah.
And it was just really cool. Everybody coming together, and yeah, there were like 2 incidents where someone pulled a gun on us. I think one of the guys got arrested that night, but I don't think any charges were filed against either of them. But that day will stand out to me forever. So Kenosha was a little late to the game to take to the streets after George Floyd. It took us a little bit, but that's kind of Kenosha for you. And it really shook. I know it shook some of the electeds around town. They didn't expect that to happen. So another moment that stands out would be what Ryan brought up, the Back the Badge rally. And the reason that stands out is because it was really the first incident of actual violence at any kind of protest. And there wasn't a single act of violence that came from Black Lives Matter protests.
Weird, isn't it?
My girlfriend was punched that day by a grown man because she was breaking up.
Oh my God.
Remember, I was in there breaking it up.
Oh, I was so mad.
Another guy got jumped, and you could see it on video. There's like 6 guys around him kicking him.
Yeah.
A former Kenosha News reporter, had to break that up. And then also my favorite incident, and it is really funny actually, my favorite incident was that after my girlfriend had been hit, her sign went flying, and there were all these Back the Badge people standing on it. And I actually have it right over there. But they were all standing on it, and this cop in plain clothes went to go pick it up. And as he was picking it up, a Back the Blue guy just runs up and sucker punches him.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he thought this guy was just picking up a Black Lives Matter sign, so he was like, "Oh, Black Lives don't matter."
They clobbered him.
And it's just the funniest, most ironic thing to me. It's my favorite thing that happened in 2020. I think he did get charged. He was the only one charged. I don't know what came of it, but I think maybe it's still in court. But yeah, and then the third moment I just wanted to point out was just actually Isaac. Isaac came forward and organized a protest basically every month. And that consistency really helped keep us going throughout the whole summer, because other people were organizing protests, but we were sure to have a consistent one that Isaac organized. And there was the Kneel for Nine, and then Isaac did a second Kneel for Nine. We had something every month, and this summer has just been like the biggest uprising that most people didn't see coming in Kenosha, and that's all before Jacob Blake. And I think that's our next topic, so I'll stop there. But
yeah, I'll finish us out with the pre Jacob Blake stuff. I do remember, like a few people have already said, the Kneel for Nine, that wasn't my first protest I had gone for George Floyd, but I remember that was the first one where I went, and it was one of those things that it was just so perspective changing, just because it was like the other ones, we went to, we didn't really have any speakers or anything like that. They were peer marches, just a lot of people, mad, and screaming and stuff like that, as everybody, wanted to go and do. But Kneel for Nine, I remember, literally like my knees started to hurt. Me and Hope were idiots, and we decided that we were going to forward and kneel on concrete.
You were in the concrete, not grass.
But one of the things that I remember started to worry me towards like the end of the summer was I was worried that some of the passion that I saw right at the beginning, like in like May and June, that like right when everything was like fresh, like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, when everything was fresh and we had like hundreds of people showing out. And those were impressive protests. Like it was like some of the first time I had ever seen that many people walking down the streets in Kenosha. But then like, as July and like towards the beginning of August came around, it was one of those things where you started noticing it was like the same 20 to 30 people coming out. And then occasionally you'd get like plus or minus 5 random people that would come out and support. And it's actually kind of funny because 3 of the people in this group I met from protesting, and Brian, Isaac, and Kyle. And then 3 of them, like 3 of the other people in this group I've met from like high school or just school in general. And the amount of like comradeship I was seeing at a lot of these protests before Jacob Blake was like, it was kind of inspiring, especially in those first few ones where they were so big, where people were like, it was like 98 degrees outside and people were like running around, I remember having like water jugs like on my like shoulder.
Yeah.
Water, like I thought I thought those were all, very nice, but then towards the end of the summer before like the big event in town, it started to become like worrying that it was almost like we were almost burned out, because people were like, all right, settle down now, because we're not as big of a city as like Portland or Minneapolis and stuff like that. So so I do want to bring it up to the group, so we can discuss this a little bit before we move on to the next topic. Am I alone in noticing that like the numbers started petering out towards the end of the summer before like the major event, or was I just like showing up to the wrong?
No.
Oh yeah, they were definitely fizzling out for sure.
Yeah.
As an organizer who had events towards the end of the summer, trying to get numbers for those events was so. I talked to Kyle about it too. Trying to pull people into the event was hard because people they weren't coming out no more, and it's to try to express that we need to keep the fire alive. It's hard because people get to that point though too, where it's like, well, nothing's changing. So we're out here on the streets, we're out trying to get our voices heard, but nothing changes.
Right. We just give up at that point.
Exactly. So people get their morale drops, and trying to find a way to keep the city high on morale. It's hard, but it was definitely noticeable, because like you said, the numbers went from 400 or 500 plus, and slowly the way the last summer went on, but so we're not as big as a city. Yeah. And it didn't happen in our city at that point either. So things, like you said, they slowly did die down due to things that are happening in our city personally. So you are right on that.
I think people switched to social media after a little bit. Like I tried to get like all of my friends to come out, but they said that they had work or they had to watch like a sibling or something like that. So people started like turning to social media more than actually like coming out and doing this with us.
Right, but even on social media, you could tell that like the links getting shared and the activity around it was dwindling too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey,
COVID
Brian,
plays
I
a
want to
role.
say something, but I think Brian was trying to.
Oh.
I was gonna say, the good thing about that though, it showed who, and it's not a knock against anybody, right? But I felt like for me, kind of showed who was really willing to take the next step for change, right? And what I mean by that, I understand everybody has responsibilities, children, jobs, siblings, all that other. But for me, what I saw were a group of individuals that said, okay, our voices are starting to dwindle down. The people are starting to dwindle down. What's next? How can we make change? How can we continue to make change? And I started to see a group of people that decided to take the next step and start attacking, legislation, the city, the school board. They weren't going to stop at that point. It was like, okay, maybe right now we're done with the protesting, or people don't want to come out for protesting, but that's not going to silence our voice. And you start to see people get involved politically, which isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's really key to really hold the leadership in Kenosha accountable, because they definitely dropped the ball with everything that happened, especially pre and post Jacob Blake.
Definitely.
Well, and that's just what I wanted to say real quick, was that the numbers dwindled, yes, but the strength of the dedication of the people that were still going out there was unlike anything Kenosha had seen in 10 years.
Yeah.
Anything. And that alone, it made up for the numbers, in my opinion, because our elected officials were still scared. Right out of it. Just totally scared.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a period of like 4 or 5 weeks where I was seeing Kyle like literally every single day of the week. I was seeing Kyle more than I was seeing my best friend. But one thing else I wanted to mention before we like move on was one thing that really, like Hope mentioned before, with the protests with Jacob Blake, it kind of like gave her a little bit of hope, and I think Brian mentioned that, you received a bit of hope from a lot of the protesting that went on. I noticed a lot of young people were coming out, and like, I'm not talking about like us young, like, because we're all still young. I'm talking about like ages between like 14 and 17, like high
schoolers,
like
I saw even younger.
Things. Yeah, like people were even bringing their like little kids and like
kids.
I see kids out on their front lawns with signs saying like honk for George Floyd, like honk for justice and this stuff, and they're just chilling with their parents on their front lawn, like
giving little kids my signs before, like people just be like walking down the street and I'll just like a little kid just like come out on their porch and scream Black Lives Matter, and I'll just like sign to them. Like I thought like, especially because I remember we had a protest against the Christopher Columbus statue that was entirely planned by like high schoolers and stuff, and like most of the people there, looked very young, and
good for them.
They're like the most passionate about some of these causes.
Yeah. Shout out to Kenosha Equiteens and Kenosha Activism.
Yes.
Those are the two high school groups that have just been like on fire, and I know they're still planning stuff now.
Oh yeah.
Now that it's getting cold, like they're still fighting, and those are the leaders in Kenosha in the future.
Yeah, I will say some of the most powerful speeches. So they asked me to speak at one of their events, the one that was at Whitecaps, and one of the most powerful speeches, well, a couple of them, was from those teens. Their dedication, their heart, and what they put into what they do, it was real, raw, true emotion. They just delivered. It wasn't something that they went home and, maybe they wrote a little note sheet, but a lot of times you can see them reading the notes and just put it down and they just let their heart pour. And some of the most, like I said, one of the most moving, like earth-shaking type of voices came from the youth-led events, and it's powerful. Like they said, the youth are our future, so to lift them up is important moving
Absolutely.
forward. So,
And well, just one more thing on that before we move on. Another thing that was like, speaking on like the younger, like high schoolers, it's incredibly impressive how educated a lot of these kids are too. Like, I remember, because Black Lives Matter became like a organization and like a saying back in 2014, I think, something like that.
ballpark, yeah.
So when I was like in high school and stuff, and I'll be the first one to admit I wasn't as educated on some of these topics when it comes to police reform and stuff like that as a lot of these 15, 16-year-olds are, and like I've learned a lot since then. But I mean, honestly, like during some of these events, some of these kids were like mentioning stuff, and I was like, shit, I didn't even know that. Like, and it really speaks to a lot of the younger guys and gals and they thems that we have in town that are like, they are investing in their community's future, and whether or not they end up staying in Kenosha, they're still bringing that knowledge into whatever communities they end up in. And I think all of them are going to be valuable, either political leaders someday or just valuable leaders in their own family, correcting people, passing those, lessons on to whoever, their kids someday, But, that was something that always really impressed me about a lot of these kids,
I agree. I love the fact that they were lifting up their classmates and minorities and LGBTQ voices at the Whitecaps. That was like you guys said, to echo off a lot of what you guys are saying. That was extremely powerful to see at that age, at that stage in their lives. They're like, yeah, I was really impressed.
Right. So now, before this goes on too long, I want us to get to the, probably the one that is going to be the, probably the big event that everybody is going to be like, expecting us to talk about, since we are a Kenosha, podcast. The post Jacob Blake protesting and events. If you don't mind, I'll kick this off just by talking about the actual night, because that's actually where I met Brian. Was at the scene of the shooting. I remember probably ran about 6 or 7 miles back and forth to Brian and like a few other people that were there. I remember because Hannah was the one who had actually told me about the shooting. Like, she had randomly called me and asked me if I heard what happened, and I was just getting out of work. Like, I worked that day. So I was like, no, I'll pick you up. And then that entire night was, I don't want to say one of the most shocking nights I've ever experienced, but it was definitely one of the most emotionally charged evenings I've ever been at. Because, you got to like within the same block of the demonstration that was forming outside of the Blake household, outside of the crime scene area. And it was just, you could feel it. It was like, at least I felt it was like it was electric area everywhere. Like, everybody was very focused in their anger. And then after the sun went down, that's when it started to become unruly at first, with a lot of I won't say unfortunately parked cop cars that were there, but some cops forgot their cars in areas that a protest were happening. So I won't say much on that. I remember, me and Brian were out there trying to get people to stop, beating up cars, because, didn't want anything to pop off too bad, because that's when they started putting on their Power Ranger SWAT armor.
Cosplayers.
Yeah, basically. And then after everybody, the cops all, we ran them out of that neighborhood. And then I remember we all marched down to, I drove there. I drove with like 3 people who couldn't walk all that way for one reason or another. Remember we met up at the police station, and I remember after we moved towards like more, what was that, entrance? Because we were at the back originally. That's when all the marchers got there. And then we moved more into that like parking lot area. And I remember that's when they pulled up their giant SWAT car. And that's when I actually was like, I think I was right next to you, Kyle, and me and you kind of looked at each other and we were like, they're going to gas.
And
So
they did.
So I
And
told
they
you to
did.
go and tell all the people in front of the car. I ran over to where people were facing off with cops, screaming like they're about to gas. And, situationally, I don't blame anyone for not moving because, some random dude just going up being like, they're going to gas, everybody, hurry. Like, especially when you're that angry.
We did get some little kids out of there, though.
Yeah, we did. And there was a puppy, too. I remember.
Yep.
And then that's when the first gas canisters went off. I know I didn't get hit by the first round because I had been getting away with some people. And then I had saw all the people who were still in front of the truck who were literally within feet of the canisters when they popped off. I ran back in to go get people out, and that's when you can't run into a cloud of tear gas and not expect to get kind of fucked up. Yeah, so I was I had two people on both arms being like, yeah, I'll help you guys can't see. And then I was like, oh shit, I can't see. I was like, God. And then Hope called me because she had just gotten out of work. She wanted to meet up, and I was like, don't come down.
Wait, can I finish the half of that I'm part of?
Well, wouldn't you have your turn? And I'm on the and I'm like, she's like, where are you? And I said, I think I'm at Wendy's. Coughing, and I vaguely threw up a little bit. And then this nice lady, I don't even know what she looks like. She just grabbed my head, took my glasses off, poured a water bottle on my face, and then I went, ah! Finally found Hope, and then we went around, I offered people water bottles because I had a few of them to wash their eyes out. And then after that, I was pretty much out of commission because another canister had gone off pretty close to me when I was helping guide people out. So I was pretty much that had knocked me on my ass at that point. So then the days following, that was, I don't think I have to say that those nights after were stressful. I'm pretty sure everybody can assume that those nights were stressful.
Yeah.
Literally, I sent Hope a picture at around that time of all the hair that was because I was so stressed out from keeping people up to date on information who were out protesting or going out myself. Having the feds come in and that's actually where I met. I think I had met you before, Isaac, but I remember I met you and actually had talked to you for a few minutes when we all met up at the Trolley Dogs on the Tuesday that Kyle Rittenhouse happened. And I remember we had those guys that were riding around on bikes, taking pictures and stuff,
Yeah.
kind of wigged out. So that entire week, again, I think I'm not alone, and this isn't a hot take. That was a very stressful week, and then the whole dynamic of protesting, I think, changed. Because it went from the passive anger of everybody being like, "Hey, this needs to stop," to, "Yo, this just happened." Now people are going to pay for it. At least that was the energy change that I felt at a lot of these protests. But I've spoken for too long. Kyle or Isaac, you want to take over now?
Wait.
Oh,
Can
Brian.
Hope go next? I want to hear the other half of this.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, Hope, you can go.
Oh, okay. I'll try to keep it quick because I wasn't physically out for a lot of this period, but when the day Jacob Blake was shot, I was at work until I think 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I was halfway through my shift, and I was getting all these messages, and coworkers were coming out to me have you heard? Did you hear? And I was like, what are you talking about? And so I heard what happened, and at first I was like, oh, okay, just add it to the list, we're already out here doing this. But then with being at work and kind of like going through the motion, then I thought about it more and I was like, wait, this is home for us now. This is different. This is it, you know? So got out of work and I was like, what do I do? Is it too late? I wasn't dressed for like I wasn't dressed to be tear gassed, you know? Like I was wearing my work clothes and had no gear or anything. So I didn't know. And then Daniel told me not to come down there. So I wasn't going to go home. So instead, I went and scouted around town for like where the where the police were like linking up and grouping and all that, and that's when they were at Bradford High School. And so I remember like trying to get a hold of Daniel. Daniel was like, call Kyle. So I was like trying to talk to both of them, and you guys were like in the thick of it. So I finally let them know, like they're gearing up at Bradford, shit's going down. And then I'm still driving around like, I'm not going home. Why would I go home? So then my mom called me and she's like, you need to come home. And I said, no. And I went down to the lake.
Me too.
So there was like, when I finally got down to like Sheridan and 52nd right by Lou Perini's, there was a whole caravan of vehicles and everyone was honking. There were so many lights. People were screaming and chanting out their car windows. And it was just like, ooh, it was fierce. Like it was charged. It was awesome. People, it was insane. So when that finally passed through and I was able to like continue on, I finally parked and was like, all right, I need to find Daniel. And it was very like foggy, you know? And I was like, what is this? I get out of my car to go find this man and retrieve him. And my eyes start stinging and my throat's burning. And I'm like, oh, this is tear gas. And so knowing it's tear gas, what do? Wipe my eyeballs with my sleeve. Never said I was very smart, you know? So yeah, so picked him up, brought him back. That was a fantastic night. I wish I could have been out there with you guys like for the whole part of it. That would have been well,
No.
I don't, but I do, you know.
Nothing.
Just to like, I wish I could always do more, because over the summer when all the marches that Isaac was planning and all of everyone else's, it was like always when I worked, so I couldn't be out as much as say Daniel, because he gets out earlier than me, but that's not what we're talking about. So after the initial night, everything was very scary, and of course I don't think I'm the only one who was scared, but I was also inspired, I guess is a word I could use. It was scary, but I understood why things were heading in the direction they were heading, and I knew where it was coming from and that it kind of needed some of that push for it. The night with Kyle Rittenhouse, I think, was a really, there's no word for it, because that was the night that Daniel and I were going to go back out and take some other friends and go in a group, and then we met up with Isaac and the others who were part of that group that day, and people were deciding like, hey, maybe it's not safe tonight if you're going to go, like make sure you're prepared, make sure you have this, you know, do you need anything?
And if I can interrupt, me and Hope have been around for like 2 hours that day, just like trying to find out like where, because there was like those rumors that people were meeting up at Piggly Wiggly with the other cars. Like me.
Oh yeah, the Kenosha Guard.
Yeah, like me and Hope have been bouncing around all day.
Kevin Matheson.
Yeah. And okay, sorry.
Well, there's not much else for me to say. So when our group had decided we're not going to go out that night, I just stuck to a lot of social media stuff, like telling everyone on the ground where things were happening, where the medics were, telling the medics where to go. But watching the live streams, I had a friend with me that night, thankfully, and everything that occurred that night was, it sticks with you, you know? It was definitely a eye-opening thing. Kyle Rittenhouse is not a fucking hero. Let's just put that one out there.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's about all I
don't think
have
that's
to say.
a hot take in this group.
Well, for whoever watches it, because we are open to all views, but that's not what I really want to hear
If
about.
you have
I'm
that
not
view,
open to that view. I'm not
The
open.
wrong podcast for you.
We do not support that view being in like.
I don't want your view.
Hey Brian, I don't know if you know, but your camera's not on.
Yeah, I know.
There he is. Okay. But all right. So Brian, you wanna talk, because I know you were out that night too.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy because that day I was actually spending time with my son, and we were kind of by that area, and I saw the cops come in, and my first initial reaction was, great, Kenosha probably shot a black man. You know, I just was that, like, you know, whenever I see cops, that's kind of like, you know, my initial reaction. hide. But I didn't take it serious, so I went home. Ready to take my son home, and I get a call from Kyle and someone else, and they're just like, "Did you hear what happened?" Everything. So we immediately shot down there, our little group of activists, and we're trying to keep the peace. And Daniel kind of explained how everything went, and it escalated from there. And then we went down there. Daniel was not one of the people that told me to avoid the tear gas, to avoid the fog.
I was yelling pretty loud.
Firecrackers, so I definitely did walk into it. Yeah, I think I kind of got there after the fact of that, because I was kind of looking for my group, and I totally walked right into it. I was thinking, it's just firecrackers, because they were shooting firecrackers, so I thought it was just regular smoke, and it kind of took me back to my military days, where that's part of training, and it was very unpleasant. Luckily, there were people there with water bottles to spray your eyes out and stuff like that. But for me, I was out every single night, and the night that probably sticks with me the most was the night where Kenosha guard Kevin Matheson and the local terrorists were out, and I actually helped a group from Milwaukee come down because they were helping us with supplies, and also some extra medics too. And that was the first night where we were out till like 4 a.m. and we saw everything burning down, right?
That was the first night.
The fire started that first night, yeah.
That night where we were out till like 4 a.m. So that was the first night, right?
That first night we were.
Yeah, so the third night, like I said, that's what sticks out to me the most. Yeah, and the third night was where the threat was real. So there were definitely supremacists out there, and the group that I was trying to get out of Kenosha and back to Milwaukee, they tried to pin them down, and they realized that they were severely outgunned and outnumbered. So they kind of backed off and left us alone. And I was literally down the street from, like, parallel from where Kyle was, shooting and killing people. So for me, that was probably the night that, sticks out the most for me after the whole Jacob Blake situation went down, because the threat was real, and, people's lives were, threatened at that point. And the things I saw in my eyes, how the police were so aggressive, how they were, we were with the medics and we were pulling people out left and right and trying to help and assist. And it was just kind of, the people that were there to serve and protect you were the ones that were brutalizing you. Yeah. And that kind of gets lost in the whole conversation a lot of times, because people want to focus on the material things, right? The buildings, the car lot and everything that was burned down, but they fail to, realize that Kyle Rittenhouse was out there with other intentions, and not even being from Kenosha and trying to protect local businesses that he has no vested interest in, that really weren't even at risk, if you ask me personally. So kind of seeing a lot of that with my own two eyes and being out there, it definitely did inspire me. It inspired the local activists that I do work with to kind of kick everything into overdrive. And after the Jacob Blake, I think after that situation, for me personally, from my point of view, going to a couple of listening sessions with the mayor, sitting in, talking with the mayor, meeting a couple people locally, politically, I think it did kind of bring a sense of unity between a lot of different groups to kind of say, hey, we have to figure out some way to change the narrative around. And I know me, I did about 5 or 6 different interviews where, my thing was, the narrative here isn't the protesters, tearing shit up, because we weren't tearing anything up. It was definitely people from out of town. When I went to town, seeing people, geared up, not even from uptown. I confronted a couple of them that weren't even from uptown, but they were spraying F12 and Black Lives Matter, busting windows and, running away. And then people that see, okay, this shop's got a window that's busted, and let me run on in there. This guy broke into Uptown Pantry, open pantry, and literally didn't take anything. Just literally busted the door, broke the door open, and walked away.
Just to do it. Yep.
Same thing with Family Dollar. Same thing with the mattress shop on the corner. Busted the window, threw a Molotov cocktail in there, walked away while people were walking out with mattresses and, you know, nightstands and, you know, just basically taking everything from this business that they possibly could get their hands on. That gets lost in the conversation. You know, there were so many things when we were on Sheridan and how that guy, remember, Kyle, how that guy took that cone and started putting bricks in there and then was dragging the cone around and basically was placing the bricks strategically so certain businesses could get their windows busted out. The guy who set that,
I heard about that.
The guy who set that gray van on fire, they just walked away and then pouring gasoline on other vehicles. So the whole, it was just like, it kind of seemed like set up and orchestrated to make Kenosha look bad in a certain light, which was really unfair. I think a lot of the things that we've done afterwards have kind of helped to change some of that narrative. And then, you know, with Cheeto Head coming out here trying to, you know, photo op and use it to his political gain, it was just really, it was frustrating. That really pissed me off because I'm like, you don't give a damn about Kenosha. You just want to further the narrative of this is Biden's America. If you vote for him, you have to watch out. You have to
It's our,
you know,
our
this is
podcast
Biden's
member.
America, and this is how things are gonna be. Yeah, right. Come on, Gigi. So the post Jacob Blake, if things were contentious before, it really got bad afterwards, especially, I'm not sure if any of you, I know Kyle, you've been to a couple of listening sessions. Isaac, I'm not sure if you have, but if you go to a lot of these listening sessions, it's a lot of older folks that are playing off that fear mongering, like things are really terrible here in Kenosha and that, you know, the city's burning down and we have to stop it. It's like, well, if you really want to be mad at somebody, and I'll end it on this, if you really want to be mad at somebody, right, you should be mad at the way the city handled it, the way the fire department didn't respond to the fires right away, the way police officers who obtained some people that were breaking into a gas station, but then you got 4 other people breaking into another gas station parallel to the fucking gas station that you got these people contained in.
Or
like,
how they
you're not going to stop them
protecting,
from breaking into the gas station over there.
or how they had the courthouse.
Yeah, so it was like we saw
cops. Yeah.
How many cops did we see out that night that just drove up and down the street while people were stealing the cars off the lot? Uptown got so hot, guys. I'll tell you this. Uptown got so hot that you literally had to leave the block. Like, it was that hot. So, post Jacob Blake, I think it kind of just really just, it didn't peel the scab off. It like literally ripped the scab off the city and was like, how are we going to do it?
Okay, so Isaac, Kyle, do you guys want to speak on it a bit? I know we're getting close to being towards like the hour and 15, so I want to see if we can get everybody to speak on it a little bit.
Sure. So I got a phone call from Kyle actually, saying, "Did you hear about KPD shooting a black man?" I was like, "No," because he woke me up. I was asleep. I was taking a nap, and I said, "No, I'll be down there." So he shot me the address, and I hopped in my car and ran down there, and drove down there. And when I showed up on scene, I was able to find KC, and I immediately I brought my camera. I'm a photographer, and I started live streaming on my phone to document and just really give people that perspective of what happens on the ground when these things happen, when police shoot a black person and emotions and feelings start to run deep. I want to show the world what that looks like, not just from, perspective of Trump supporters and what they think it is not really ever being there. I want to actually show what's real. And I personally wasn't out there really get involved due to the fact that I broke my ankle. So I really didn't want to be involved in the way that would break it more, if you will. But I want to be out there at least to document. I remember being out there as the sun started to set, and you really got to see, like we talk about young people being out there. There's a lot of the young generations out there, under 18, that were out there expressing their emotion, their anger, and you really got a sense to feel for that being more visceral instead of, like I said, seeing it on TV or someone else's live stream, things like that. You got an opportunity to be out there and see it. And then you have to watch the dynamics change, because people were saying to the police, why don't you just back off? Why don't you just leave? You're really adding insult to injury by gearing up, and you're creating more of a divide instead of being, hey, we understand, we can't have you guys doing this, but let's talk about it. There's ways to handle a situation like that, and putting up a wall essentially and saying, screw you guys, this is us, this is you, we're going to clash until this ends. It's kind of what that message sent, and that raised attention that night. And then you got things like the cop cars getting smashed, and the officer took a brick to the head when they were
Molotov cocktail.
Which
That's a scene.
I was thinking, because it was volatile. It had the boiling points, but that Molotov cocktail got thrown, and then things just sparked. No pun intended, but they it went from that point of people were trying to find a way to feel and trying to navigate their emotions and express their anger towards another Black person getting shot unjustly. And now we didn't just have body camera footage we had to wait to get released. We had a video that we can see right now what happened. It was real. It wasn't we had to wait for an investigation from the released body camera footage. It was now. The world saw this video immediately. And you got to really see throughout the live stream how much the world joined in to support. Because I expected to go on live, just, Kenosha, like West Kenosha, and put up a live stream with the Kenosha residents to hop on there, and that's it. But I remember giving my phone to Brian for a little bit because I want to take some photographs of the crime scene. And he was just like, whoa, he's like, your live stream's just blowing up. And I was like, yeah, okay, probably not. And he handed me back the phone. The comments are just flying. And it ended up, and I only say this to kind of people understand that more than not, people are involved in the fight. Because they end up with about right around just shy of 1 million views right now and like 16,000 comments. But it's all, you have those people in there. I'm trying to read them all. It's my project now to read all the comments and just to kind of weigh out who's with it and who's not with it. And right now, the definitely weighs higher people who are with the cause. Of course, you have those people in there that, the Trump supporters are going to go in there and cause havoc and just rip on everybody. But people are just there.
You gotta own the libs, man. Come on. You gotta own the libs.
they're definitely supporting the cause. They really are. And I know that when we moved out from that location after the officer got bricked head, they pushed the cops out the neighborhood. We went down to the police department, as people were talking about, and I walked in there again to document, and not like I knew about the tear gas, but I guess I got a little bit too close than I should have with the broken ankle, because I wasn't expecting it. I was just more focused on catching emotion with my camera, and all of a sudden a canister flew, and I was like, yeah, I can't run away. So I just kind of got behind a mass of people and just kind of walked my way out, and then people used me as a blocking shield because I'm a big guy, so they got behind me. This doesn't work. I'm in a 5. I got a broken ankle, but sure, let's use me. So we got out of there, but I still wanted to hang around for a while to really just document. Because again, I think documenting is important, which is why you see a lot of these independent live streamers out there going out there now to show the truth. Because the media is swayed to whatever side it's to, they're not going to give you everything you need to see. And the fast forward to the night of Colorado, we were out there, KC with the medics and everything on the medic station. You really got to see throughout the course of those 3 days the lack of respect for human rights when it comes to law enforcement. There was no respect. It literally was us versus them, was the mentality out there. They waged war with their own civilians. Tear gas is chemical warfare. That was developed for war, not for civilians on our ground, unless it had. But that's for wartime. That's like a civil war in the United States. That's when they break out the tear gas. But it was developed for war. It's a weapon of war, and to deploy that against civilians it's wrong. And yes, was there some things that they need to control? Yeah, sure, but there was many different ways to de-escalate a crowd. Besides, when you throw tear gas, you escalate because people are going to brush it off, clean up their wounds. They're going to get right back at it again because you're waging war. Exactly, you're waging war, and you start shooting rubber bullets. Well, they're going to come out with ways to find ways to minimize you, whether that's fireworks or whatever they can throw back at you. It just creates a war. It's volatile. And the Bearcat, which is that armored vehicle, they're called Bearcats. When we were at the medic station and we were trying to render aid, they were shooting at the medics and at the press. So they were shooting their pepper balls at medics and the press. And I got on video. I'm sitting there recording, and I'm across the street. Like I said, I'm in a boot. I'm not going in there because it's not going to end well for me. So I'm across the street, and they're shooting at me with a boot on. Like, what am I really going to do? I'm in a boot, and my ankle's broke, and I'm across the street by the press. So what am I going to do? But they're lighting me up, and the press is like, we're pressed, and he's like, I don't care, bang, bang, bang. And it's just like, okay, so where are we drawing the line here? Like, what is the real mission for you guys being out here? Just to show force because Trump said so? Or is it to actually protect and preserve life and preserve property? Like, because they weren't doing either. If their mission was to preserve property and preserve life, they failed on both accounts.
Well, they preserved property, but it was their property in the courthouse.
Exactly.
That was the only property that they decided that they wanted to protect.
All they worried about was what was theirs.
Yep.
And that's it. And so then you see civilians who lost their lives and got shot. You see civilian property that got burned down that got lost. So what do they really do? You have Trump who came into town saying, there's no peaceful protest. I came to Kenosha. Look at all this. Well,
that made me so mad.
I was watching live, so I took my keyboard warrior skills to start typing. And so I'm like, how are you going to come to a city that you probably didn't even know existed except for when you came in the area to dig dirt for Foxconn? But besides that, you don't know anything about Kenosha. Only thing you know is as far as your nose can see, but past your nose, you're too self-centered to really care about
electoral votes you get.
Exactly. It's too self-centered to know about Kenosha and the dynamics that we're on here. So to come here and say that there's nothing peaceful about Kenosha, to walk around uptown and stand by the burnt buildings for a photo op and then say, well, this is
Bradford, like.
Exactly. It's wrong. And then during his board, he had an African-American who wasn't even from Kenosha. So there's no representation for African-Americans in Kenosha on the board that was speaking. And so you had nobody who can say, no, President Trump, this is not the dynamics in Kenosha. You weren't here. You didn't know. And they say there's nothing peaceful. I held peaceful events. I know others who have. And there's some peaceful events here in Kenosha.
Entire summer.
But he didn't acknowledge that. And then to say this is Biden's America, this is happening in Trump's America. Biden's not president. So all these commercials about Biden's America, cities burning down, well, Trump, you're president. So how would Biden's not president? He is. So I don't understand that commercial is just so backwards. I don't know if you guys saw the commercial, but there's a commercial that shows Kenosha burning down and the woman with a sadistic laugh in the background. That's the whole commercial. It's just her laughing. And
what the fuck?
Then just it says paid for by Trump for America. And it's like, okay.
Wonder how long it took them to make that.
And then the response, like I haven't attended any listening sessions, but with the fear mongering and the people who are like mad about things burning down and like who they're really mad at. I was interviewed by a lot of different people, and one thing I told them was they asked me like, what do you have to say to people about property and what does life look like moving on? And I was like, well, we had plenty of events pre-Jacob Blake, post-George Floyd, asking the community to get involved, step up, support your minorities, neighbors, and really be out there for us so things like this don't happen. And they did not. They never came out. They never showed up. They never supported us. But when this happens, which is what we were out here trying to prevent happening, inviting you guys to attend, they didn't attend. So now they want to get mad when things are burnt down, properties are lost, and they get frustrated and pissed off. But you had opportunity. I'm going to say you because people are watching this. I'm going to talk directly to them right now. Like, you guys had opportunity to come out and support us, but you didn't. So now you want to get mad at the fact that buildings were lost. But the root of the problem is officers are taking it upon themselves to act on their own racist or prejudiced tendencies to take lives instead of preserve lives, and it happens to fall heavily on African Americans. So we're going to be out here asking for your support, and you don't give it. So when things get burnt down, it's all cause and effect. But people want to focus on the effect, not the cause. There's a reaction to everything, but the reaction has an action that causes that reaction. So the action is the officer in Kenosha shoot Jacob Blake 7 times in the back, which is not right. But we had protests and events to prevent that from happening. Before that happened, you guys didn't show up.
Within days before that happened.
So to prevent this, and so moving forward, when we have events out here for Black lives, for minority lives, and yes, even for people who are white that get shot unjustly by police, all lives don't matter. Come out, stand up. Otherwise, I don't want to hear about your anger. I'm sorry, I don't.
Yep.
Buildings can be replaced, lives cannot.
Yep. Yep.
I cannot give back the lives that were lost at the hands of police. I cannot get back the lives that are lost by Kyle Rittenhouse. I cannot get back full use of the arm of the individual who was shot by Kyle. I can't give those back. I also cannot get back the pain that that police officer suffered taking a brick to the back of the head. But all this is caused by the fact that nobody wanted to stand up and support Black lives in police against police brutality. So things happen. Officers get hurt. Civilians get hurt. It's a domino effect. So we need your support. Or don't complain.
All right, Nick, Hannah, Kyle, I feel bad for not giving you guys your time, but we need to wrap it up here soon. I just wanted to.
Let me say just real quick though, because I didn't have much to say about. I mean, Brian said it. We watched the cops driving by burning buildings, driving by people setting fires in the car lot that everybody in the world knows about now. We saw. I was there right on the scene. We saw the riot and how it happened. It happened because the riot cops came out. There was no riot until the riot cops came out and started throwing tear gas at us. There's never an appropriate time. I'm going to have to disagree. There's never an appropriate time to use tear gas. It's a war crime to use tear gas. I was tear gassed 4 times and I'm still pissed off about it. So never, ever is it okay to use tear gas. Rubber bullets, they're lethal. We saw broken bones from them. So I really need to get that shit out because it's completely unacceptable how police handled this. And it's completely unacceptable that Sheriff David Beth was the guy at the head of all of it. He lied about seeing the Jacob Blake video. I got a video of him watching.
Right.
The one that ordered his officers to put their bodies on the line to protect a freaking courthouse. That courthouse's property value is nowhere near the property value of the businesses that got burned down. So Sheriff David Beth is the real bad guy here. He's the one who caused this riot.
Next election come around.
Who incited the riot? Sheriff David Beth. And then the only other thing I want to say is, because we've mentioned Kyle Rittenhouse's name a lot, I wish we would stop saying his name.
I agree.
He's a terrorist thug, and that's what I'm sticking with. But the names we do need to say is JoJo. JoJo died. He was innocent. He didn't deserve to die.
Yep.
We need to remember JoJo. And Anthony Huber, who I knew personally. Anthony Huber is a fucking hero. He is the hero of Kenosha. He is a hero for this country. And I want everybody to know the name Anthony Huber, because Anthony Huber deserves to be remembered. And all these people posting all these bullshit, ugly memes about Anthony and JoJo, let me just tell you, Anthony would think those were hilarious. You were pathetic for posting those memes. So keep posting them. Go ahead.
All right. So just to close us out, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity. So since we are less than 3 weeks from probably one of the most important elections of any of our lifetimes, I'm going to run down the line and give everybody a brief second to maybe predict what you think is going to happen on November 3rd or that week, or maybe just predict on who you have winning as of right now. If you don't want to predict it because you think you might jinx it, that is perfectly okay. I'll start. I personally think that the night of the election, it might look like Trump won based off of voter turnout is going to be higher for Trump at the polls, showing up live. But then as the next few days come by, it's going to actually turn out that Biden won a lot of the states that looked like Trump won. And then I feel like there's going to be a lot of drama with that in the Supreme Court and yada, yada. So that'll definitely be an interesting and stressful week. Nick, what is your opinion?
I don't want to give too accurate of a depiction a prediction just because of in the last election, I was so 100% confident that Hillary was going to win. And let me just say, I'm not even a fan of Hillary Clinton, but it's definitely the lesser of two evils, and it's like that just now again. I would like to say that I really want Biden to win, but honestly, it's hard to tell. Right now, he is up in like all the national polls. There's only a few individual states that have Trump leading them in the polls. But Trump has also done a really good job, I'll give him that, of fear-mongering, especially with all of the protests that are happening, especially with George Floyd and Jacob Blake and coming to Kenosha and all his bullshit commercials. He's done a really good job of like stoking that fire of hate in his supporters and even pushing people that are in the middle that are taking his side of view and just going with him just because they're, seeing all this destruction that's happening. And he's saying that it's all Biden's fault, which, we know it's not Biden's fault. But all I can say is I can hope for the best. Fingers are crossed for Biden, lesser of two evils, but I got to go with him.
Someone here in Stephen's Point, who's a Trump supporter, said that there was a nuclear power plant in Kenosha. And that's why... I don't know. It was some of the craziest shit I've ever heard.
I think there could be a small nuclear element to that power plant, but also that power plant's been shut down. It's not even.
I don't know.
Right.
It was like a steam,
I thought that was
I don't know.
I don't know. That's just what a Trump supporter that I heard, like what they said about Kenosha. So.
All right. Well, since you're talking right now, Hannah, who do you got? Who do you got winning right now?
I mean.
For those that are just listening, not watching.
For sure. And you said something about jinxing, but like there's something in my heart and my being that I know like we're gonna come out on top, because I feel like people are more human than that to like go and vote for him after they've seen everything that's happened. I feel like people's actual like human will come out, because you don't get to see who you're voting for in those booths. Like you can't like physically see. So someone could be saying that they support Trump and then go in the polls and vote for Biden. You know what I'm saying? Like, so 100% I think Biden's going to come out on top.
All right. Riding. All right.
Yes.
Ryan, who do you got?
I think we're all underestimating the amount of ignorant people that we have that are eligible to vote. So
right.
I believe Trump is going to win. I'm not voting for Trump. I despise the guy. I hate him. I don't like him. I think he's terrible for America. But just the way things are going, and I feel like this is the same thing I said last election. There's a lot of ignorant people that we are underestimating right now that are eligible to vote, that can vote, and that will go out there and vote for him and won't even listen to, or do listen to him. That's the problem. So I hate to be like, the pessimist of the group. I just think Trump's going to end up somehow pulling us out again, and then we're going to be stuck for 4 more years. And I really, really, really hope I'm wrong.
right, so Brian's got the secret Trump vote. Hope.
Well, I hate to agree with that. I don't know about like the outcome, who it's gonna be, but I'm glad, Brian, that you brought up there's a lot of ignorant people who can and will vote, and I think those ignorant people outweigh the young people who can be voting right now, who just don't want to vote in something like this, which I totally understand. But for people in my age group,
for Biden is so low.
We've already been through this in 2016. That was my first election, and that was a couple of our first election we could vote for. So we've already done this lesser of two evil. I don't want to vote for anyone, but it's my civil duty or whatever, you know? So for the young people watching this, maybe who are on the fence about voting because you don't like any of your choices, just please do it. Pick one.
Please vote.
Forget the Trump train. We're on the joke-emotive.
Yeah,
Please vote for Biden. Prove me wrong.
I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but please just can we like change this so we can move forward in the right direction instead of the fascist direction? Thank you.
Fascist. All right, Isaac, who do you got?
So I really do feel people, they like Ryan had mentioned about the power of people who are ignorant, but there are people who do not vote year after year after year, and that number is greater and greater and greater. And we'd be surprised to realize how great that number truly is. And I really do feel if we go out there and there's still time to really speak messages of empowerment to tell people that your voice matters in this election. I kind of do, but I always want people to vote on the side of humanity is my big message right now. Is a vote on the side of humanity. Now, what that looks like to you is your definition of humanity, but I would hope, being a human and having, family, whether it's kids, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, that you would vote on the side that's best for us all, and to really be educated on who you're voting for, and to remember, where both political parties stand. For those who are listening, I'm just a real quick snapshot is, for most of us here on a day-to-day life, when you vote Republican, and who are we? When you vote Democrat, for the most part, they're there for that less than 1%. Everybody else, Republican side's a business party. It's not a working class party. We all are working class. So for people who are out there who are blue collar workers and below, that's the party for you. Now, whether or not you agree with all their principles, it's a different story. But for people who are struggling financially and people who are on welfare and below that poverty line, Republicans don't really do much for that. So something to think about when you vote is if I vote for Republicans, does that affect my livelihood and my lifestyle? And a lot of these people who are going to vote for Trump are voting for Trump at their own detriment. They don't understand that when they vote for Trump based off of his fear-mongering, it affects them, it affects their children, it affects their children who are in school, college, it affects their elderly parents, it affects their whole family, their whole lifestyle when they vote for Trump, just based on the fact that Biden's America is going to be the end of America. Yes, no, Trump's America is going to be the end of America. Let's get that right.
Biden is a socialist, so they have a point. Biden is a dirty Marxist, so.
But with the system of checks and balances, though, it's hard for somebody to run away with that. That's the way our government is set up. So it's hard for somebody to just take that and run. And just because if that was the case, we would be ruled by King Trump, and we would all. So if you have there's a system of checks there.
Canceled.
So right now, if that was the case, Trump would be king, and he'd be licking his feet.
Yep. Maybe I will vote Trump. All right, so right now you have Biden winning.
Yeah. I really feel that people are going to pull out. There's a lot of people who are not going to go out there and say that they're riding with Biden because they want to vote. So they're going to go out there, going to vote, cast their vote. A lot of people are going to vote, early, and absentee ballots. They're not going to go out there on social media and say, because there's just too much conflict right now, too much fights. You can't say I'm for Biden on Facebook unless I want to chop your head off. So a lot of people they're being mellow about it this year and just keeping it to themselves. So
all right. So Isaac's riding with Biden. So Speaking of the Biden of the group, Kyle, what is your opinion?
I was gonna say if Biden's a socialist, I'm a communist. Like,
I'm a full anarchist, baby. I don't.
all right. So I voted for Obama in 2012. I voted third party 4 years ago.
Mhm.
I'm voting for Biden this year. I refuse to make a prediction until the week of the election because 4 years ago I made a whole lot of predictions and
Exactly.
a lot of them were wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say, but what I will say is that there are people doing really good work right now to make sure Biden wins.
Yeah, I agree.
There are a lot of organizations out there. If you want to make sure that this fascist is out of office, you want to make sure that Antifa wins. If you want to make sure of that,
Antifa president.
do me a favor and get off your ass and call an organization in your community that's working. Do phone banking. Do door knocking. Do it safely. There's a pandemic. Wear a mask.
Message me, like I do it every single week.
Any
like,
of us,
please,
honestly.
we need
message
help.
any of us and get off your ass and make sure it happens. You have 17 days. Let's make sure it happens. If you're in another state, if you're in Texas, get involved with Beto O'Rourke's organization because they're going to flip Texas. Shut up, Daniel. They're going to work hard.
I don't like white Obama.
White Obama.
White Obama.
But listen, Beto has a good program out there, and they registered more young voters than ever before in Texas. Texas could flip. If Texas flips, we won. If you're not in Texas, maybe you're in Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Work your ass off. We have to win. So that's all.
Even if you're in a solid blue state, it doesn't matter. You should vote. I don't care because like that.
Vote.
You know, in 2016, a lot of people who do live in like those states like that were solid blue states. They're like, I don't really like Hillary that much. I'm not going to show up. And wow, holy shit!
Look at the outcome.
Wow.
Yeah, that state ended up turning red. So no state is solid. No state is completely sure. Kyle is riding with Biden.
The only other thing I wanted to say is other than Biden, though, we've got a lot of good down ballot tickets, and I think we are looking at another blue wave for those down ballot tickets. That's the prediction I will make.
I agree. I think there will be a blue wave this time, more effective than there was in 2018.
And if you need Biden-Harris signs, let me know. I can get you guys Biden-Harris signs.
For sure.
Oh.
All right.
I got shirt and buttons. I need a sign.
All right. So on that note, guys, I'm going to end the recording. This has been a great first episode. I know next time we're going to be talking about some more abstract topics. Today was more about talking about Kenosha stuff, since we are named after the 262 area code. I hope you guys had a really nice time. Oh, Isaac?
Say one more thing.
Okay.
On terms of voting, real quick. For women and minorities, people have worked tirelessly for your right to vote. Tirelessly to give you guys the right to vote. So everybody, please vote. People have fought for your rights, died for your right to vote. So get out there and use it.
I agree. All right. So that was actually a better note than I was going to say to end off on. So can't wait till next time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for everybody getting on the.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So
Please vote.
I'm ending the recording.